At 69, Tom Hanks no longer talks about fame, fortune, or the spotlight. Instead, he speaks softly about kindness, gratitude, and 5 remarkable lives he has touched along the way. For decades, he has been Hollywood's quiet moral compass, a man whose gentleness off-screen mirrors the humanity he brings to every role. Those who have met him say he doesn't just act, he listens, remembers, and lifts people up in ways that stay with them for a lifetime. Because for Tom, success has never been about awards or red carpets. It has always been about connection, about giving back to those who once stood where he did, uncertain, hopeful, searching for light. And here are the 5 people whose lives were forever changed by the simple kindness of Tom Hanks. Number 5, Steven Spielberg, the creative brother who walked beside him. They met not as legends, but as 2 men searching for truth through storytelling. It was the late 1990s when Steven Spielberg invited Tom Hanks to star in Saving Private Ryan. What started as a professional partnership soon evolved into something deeper, a brotherhood founded on respect, honesty, and shared values. For Spielberg, Hanks was more than a performer. He was a storyteller with integrity, someone who could carry the weight of human emotion without ever losing humility. Spielberg once said, "Tom doesn't just play a hero. He reminds us of the good we still want to believe in." During the grueling shoot of Saving Private Ryan, Spielberg often noticed how Hanks would quietly comfort younger actors shaken by the intensity of war scenes. He would crack a gentle joke, share a personal story, or simply place a hand on someone's shoulder. "He leads without trying to lead," Spielberg recalled years later. "That's what makes him extraordinary." Their partnership didn't end with one film. Together, they built a creative legacy that shaped modern cinema. Catch Me If You Can, The Terminal, Bridge of Spies, and the HBO series Band of Brothers. Each project reflected not only their artistic mastery, but also their shared faith in human goodness. Offset, their friendship deepened. Spielberg once said that when he doubts the world, he calls Tom. "He reminds me that decency still exists." Hanks, in turn, has often credited Spielberg for pushing him to think beyond the screen, to see filmmaking as an act of empathy, not ego. Over the years, they've become more than collaborators. They're 2 storytellers who never stopped believing in kindness. Proof that, sometimes, the greatest partnerships are born not from ambition, but from the quiet decision to lift each other up. Number 4, Charlize Theron, the young actress he encouraged to believe in herself. Years before she became an Oscar-winning icon, Charlize Theron was just another face in a casting room. Nervous, uncertain, and struggling to be seen. Hollywood in the 1990s wasn't kind to newcomers, especially to a young woman with a South African accent and no connections. One day, during an audition that wasn't going her way, she met Tom Hanks. He wasn't there as a star. He was visiting a producer friend and happened to walk in as she was leaving, her eyes glassy with frustration. Hanks stopped her, smiled, and said softly, "You have light. Don't let anyone dim it just because they can't see it yet." It was a small moment, one sentence, one kindness, but it stayed with her. Years later, in an interview, Charlize said that meeting Tom was like meeting decency itself. His words became a quiet promise to herself that she wouldn't give up. She began taking smaller roles, studying harder, refusing to be defined by rejection. When she finally won the Academy Award for Monster, she mentioned him privately in a thank you note. "You told me I had light," she wrote. "You were right. It just needed time to shine." Tom never sought credit. When asked about it, he simply said, "You never know when your words might be the thing someone holds on to. So, make them kind." Their paths crossed again years later at an awards event. Charlize hugged him and whispered, "You changed how I see myself." Hanks only smiled. "No, you did that. I just reminded you what was already there." To this day, she describes Tom as one of the few people in Hollywood who never made her feel small. In a world built on appearances, he saw through the surface and spoke to her soul. That one encounter, brief, gentle, genuine, became the seed of belief that grew into one of the most powerful performances of her generation. Number 3, Connor Ratliff. The actor he chose to lift up, years after a rejection. In Hollywood, rejection is routine, but for one young actor, it became a wound that lasted decades. Connor Ratliff was a hopeful performer in his 20s when he auditioned for a small part in the HBO series Band of Brothers, produced and co-directed by Tom Hanks. He got the job, and then, just before filming, he was told he'd been replaced. The reason? Tom thinks you have dead eyes. For years, those words haunted Connor. He left acting, convinced he wasn't good enough. It became the story he told himself, until, 20 years later, he turned that pain into art. He created a podcast called Dead Eyes, exploring rejection, failure, and self-worth, all while wondering what had really happened that day. Then, something extraordinary occurred. Tom Hanks heard about the show, and instead of ignoring it, he reached out. He appeared on the final episode, not to defend himself, but to make amends. "I don't remember saying that," Hanks admitted, his voice gentle, "but I absolutely believe it could have happened. What matters is that you turned it into something meaningful. That's what artists do." He apologized sincerely, not as a celebrity saving face, but as a man who understood how fragile dreams can be. The two laughed, cried, and shared a conversation that became one of the most moving moments in modern entertainment. For Connor, it was closure. "Tom didn't just apologize," he later said. "He gave me back a part of myself I'd lost." That moment showed the world something rare. That true greatness isn't about never making mistakes, but about having the humility to heal them. Tom Hanks didn't need to appear on a small podcast, but he did, because he knew that kindness, when given freely, can rewrite even the most painful stories. And in doing so, he reminded millions listening around the world that redemption is never too late. Not in life, not in art, and certainly not in the heart. Number 2, Ginnifer Goodwin, the student who learned that kindness is greatness. When Ginnifer Goodwin first met Tom Hanks, she wasn't yet a household name. She was a student freshly graduated from Boston University, unsure if she had what it took to survive in Hollywood. The business seemed cold, competitive, and unforgiving, but one small encounter would change the way she understood success and herself. It happened during an early reading for a film project. Tom Hanks, already an icon, was there to observe and offer guidance. Ginnifer was nervous. Her hands trembled as she read her lines. Afterward, Hanks approached her, not with criticism, but with warmth. "You were wonderful," he told her. "Don't spend your time trying to impress people. Spend it trying to tell the truth." That single sentence became her compass. Years later, she said in an interview, "Tom taught me that kindness is a form of greatness. He made me believe you can be powerful without being cruel." As her career took off, from Big Love to Once Upon a Time, Ginnifer carried his lesson with her. She became known not only for her performances, but also for her grace. Crew members described her as the kind of actress who thanked everyone on set by name, who remembered birthdays, who always stayed late to help the team. When asked why, she smiled and said, "Because someone once showed me that greatness starts with decency." Tom Hanks never took credit. When he heard about her comment, he reportedly said, "She didn't need me. She just needed someone to say out loud what she already was." In a world that often rewards ego over empathy, that one exchange between a young actress and a Hollywood legend became proof that mentorship doesn't always happen through grand gestures. Sometimes it's a few honest words spoken at the right time that remind someone who they are and who they can still become. Number 1, Colin Hanks, the son he guided without carrying. Among the many people Tom Hanks has lifted up, none carry his influence more quietly, or more profoundly, than his own son, Colin Hanks. To the world, Colin is a talented actor and filmmaker in his own right, but to Tom, he's a young man who had to find his voice without standing in his father's shadow. From the beginning, Tom made one decision clear. He would not use his fame to pave Colin's way. "You have to earn it," he told his son. "The only thing I can give you is love. The rest, you'll build yourself." It wasn't a test. It was a gift. When Colin struggled early in his career, facing skepticism from those who saw only his last name, Tom offered no shortcuts, only patience and belief. He showed up quietly to small theater productions, sitting in the back rows, never announcing himself. Afterward, he would hug his son and say, "You did the work. That's what matters." In interviews, Colin has spoken of his father not as a superstar, but as a compass. He leads by example. Colin once said. He taught me that the real measure of success isn't applause, it's being someone worth working with twice. Their relationship, built on mutual respect rather than legacy, reflects the core of who Tom Hanks is. He's a man who gives guidance not by pulling others up, but by standing beside them until they rise on their own. When Colin directed his first documentary, Tom refused to interfere until opening night. As the credits rolled, he quietly slipped into the audience, tears in his eyes. Later, he simply said, "You've become the kind of storyteller I always hoped to be proud of, and I already was." Through Colin, we see the most intimate proof of Tom's legacy. Not fame, not fortune, but fatherhood built on faith in another person's strength. He didn't hand his son a career. He handed him courage. And perhaps that's the most powerful mentorship of all, the kind that teaches love without dependence and greatness without ego. 5 people, 5 stories. Each one a reminder that Tom Hanks's greatest performances have never been limited to the screen. They've been lived quietly through acts of compassion that ripple far beyond Hollywood. He has never sought credit nor claimed to be extraordinary. When asked why he gives so freely, he once said, "Because someone did it for me once, and I never forgot how it felt." At 69, Tom Hanks stands not as a monument to fame, but as proof that decency still has power. The lives he's touched, from a young actress on the edge of quitting to a son learning to stand tall, are his truest legacy. Now, when people ask him what success means, he smiles and says, "It's simple. If you've helped someone see the light inside themselves, then you've done enough." Perhaps that's the quiet magic of Tom Hanks. He doesn't chase the spotlight, he reflects it.